Aruna, hello.
Hello?
Aruna, నా స్క్రీన్ కనిపిస్తుందా?
Yeah.
So Aruna, are you able to see different windows on my laptop?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Aruna. Friends, we will wait couple of minutes before we start.
Sure.
Sai, are you here?
Yeah, Bindu, I'm here.
Thank you, Sai.
No
So,
problem.
so friends, I'm muting everybody. So if anybody wants to talk, you can unmute yourself and talk. So I will start with my Angular presentation, and when I'm done, Sai will be presenting a little bit about AWS basics. So I've been referring to this Go Java full stack with Spring Boot and Angular by Ranga Karanam in Udemy. So I referred to 9 of those videos, and I will try to share what all I learned with you. So in order to install Angular, first of all, Angular 1, it has to do with JavaScript. And from Angular 2 onwards, they started using TypeScript instead of JavaScript. So from Angular 2 onwards, it's entirely different. And in order to install Angular, we need to first install Node.js. So what is Node.js? And it's really easy to install Node.js. We just need to go here and say Node.js download. and we can install it from this link. So Node.js is a runtime environment that is cross-platform. It's free and open source. And basically, we run, usually JavaScript is used to develop the front-end part of the web applications, that is the websites. So JavaScript is basically used to create the web pages, and it mainly runs on the browser. So if we want to run JavaScript from outside the browser, then we need Node.js. So if we have Node.js, then we can run the JavaScript outside the browser as well. And with Node.js, they're saying that we will be able to run JavaScript even on the server. So once we install Node.js, which I installed on my machine, so I installed Node.js already. So if I say node-v, then the version of the node gets displayed. And along with node, another thing called node package manager also gets installed, and we can also verify its version. So that is 6.14.4. So we installed both node and node package manager. And the next thing is to install Visual Studio Code. So they're saying that Visual Studio Code is a JavaScript editor. And if we look at the available JavaScript editors, there are a lot of them. Atom, Vim, Brackets. But they are saying that the Visual Studio Code is the best JavaScript editor. And we can download it from here. So I downloaded it, and this is Visual Studio Code. So this is how the web application is divided into. So there are 3 tiers. The first one is the front end, and that could be developed using Angular. And then the middle layer can be developed using REST web services, and they can be developed using Spring Boot. And the backend layer is the database. So this is how usually a web application is built. And here is a question: why should front end and back end be separated? And this picture is the answer. If you look at here, the Angular application, it is used to develop a website, and the mobile app. So we can, for the same thing, we may need a web application, we may need a mobile app, and then there is IoT, and I don't know what IoT is. If anybody knows, they can explain. If anybody knows what IoT is, they can unmute and explain.
I think is it Internet of Things?
Yeah, but what does that Internet of Things really mean?
So Internet of Things is basically end-to-end whatever you do, including a device and software and hardware, all combination. So basically you use we are all using Apple Watch. Apple Watch is a device, right? But it has capability to measure the statistics of analytics of your health. Basically, how many steps you walked in a day, and what is your vital information like temperature, body temperature, and what is your blood pressure, and all those kind of statistics are captured by a device, and those are converted into analytics. and there is a software which is doing behind the scene, and the software is attached to a hardware device. So that is basically Internet of Things. You do everything using internet. Whatever you can do possibly is a combination of devices, hardware, software. Everything is basically Internet of Things. Converting a human interventional data into analytical data in a short form.
Okay, thank you very much. That's a great explanation. So why do we have to divide the front end from the back end? Just because we have a web application, we have a separate mobile application and possibly some Internet of Things related applications. Just because we have multiple applications doesn't mean we need to develop separate set of web services and separate set of databases. So we can have just one database and one set of web services, and we can just have different front ends all pulling up the data from the same web services. So now we say that from Angular 2 and above, they use TypeScript. So what is TypeScript and in what way is it different from JavaScript? So TypeScript is JavaScript plus strong typing. So what is strong typing? Java language is strongly typed, meaning, if we declare a variable as an integer type, then we should be able to assign only an integer to that variable. And if we try to assign a string, then we get a compilation error. So that is called strong typing, whereas JavaScript is not strongly typed. That means, we can declare the value as a variable and we can assign number 5 integer or a string to the same variable. So JavaScript is not strongly typed, but TypeScript is strongly typed. So this is the TypeScript example. So if we declare value as a number, then we should be able to assign only integer to it. Trying to assign a string will result in a compilation error, just like Java. So that is the difference between TypeScript and JavaScript. And they're also saying that TypeScript supports interfaces. So what is document object model? So a HTML page is represented. So like if I go here and click on development tools, so this is the HTML representation of this page, and this HTML document can be represented by the document object model. So the HTML code has different nodes. The HTML is a node, head is a node, body is a node, div is a node. So everything is just a node, and this form is represented by document object model. And this document object model is used by languages like JavaScript, Python, etc. For example, if you look at this code, this is a JavaScript function that tries to add a heading element to the body of the HTML page. For example, if you look at this code, they're trying to create a H1 element. So let me just quickly explain. I'm sorry, I know there are like people with different knowledge levels. So this part, when they are saying this statement, it creates a H1 element like this. And then the next one, it includes big head text in this element. And the next instruction, it appends that heading to the body element. So this code, this code will be appended, will be put into the body section of the HTML page. That H1 will be placed somewhere here, and we can see the big heading here. So that is basically about the document object model. So now, so far we have installed Node.js, which is the runtime environment. And then we have also installed Visual Studio Code, which is the editor for JavaScript. And now we need to install the actual Angular, and we are installing it on the top of the Node.js. So to install Angular.js, this is the command npm install g angular CLI. So I already installed it, so I can just check the version of the Angular. ng version. So this is the version 9.1.7. We are actually learning Angular 9. And then there is a command called ng help. So all the Angular commands, they start with ng, and all the node commands, node package manager commands start with npm. So these are all the available commands in Angular. And if we want to look at the help specific to any command, then we need to follow this format. For example, if I want to get help about the command serve, then this is what I type. So this is the help for ng serve command. So now that we installed Angular, CLI stands for command line interface. Now that we installed Angular CLI, the next step is to create a new Angular project. And that we can do by using ng-new. So I actually created the new project called to do, but if we want to create it, we have to run this command. And once we run this command, the new project gets created, and then we need to run the command ng generate to generate the default code. So that is, all of that code is just automatically generated. We don't need to write anything, just to start with. So when I do both those things, I have the folder called to do, and I can see it from here, from my Explorer. And in order to see this code in Visual Studio Editor, I should go here, and then I should drag and drop this folder from here to Visual Studio Code, and then I will be able to see all of this. I have already done this, so that is why I'm able to see all of these folders from here. So if I look at the Visual Studio Code editor, it's really easy to work with. It's not as complicated as Eclipse. So this is a toggle button, and this is the Explorer window. And if I want to look at any file, just click on it, and then I will be able to see that file. So once I create the new project, I can build and run it using ng-serve. So this is my command prompt. And here I do ng serve. So this command will basically build all the code, and then it will launch the application. So it says it compiled successfully, and it says the Angular is on, it is available at this location on the browser. So I just copy it and just paste it here. Okay, so this is the default web page that is generated by the default code. So we already launched the Angular application. So this ng serve, it keeps on running. This process is still running. And what it does is this command, it keeps on monitoring the Angular application for any changes that the developer makes. And once those changes are saved, they will automatically get reflected onto this web browser. I can show you how that works. So if you see here, welcome Aruna, that is coming from this HTML file. So if I go to this HTML file, so now if I change it to welcome Sai and save it, then this one gets automatically loaded, and then I can see Sai here. So any change I make it and save it, things get automatically reflected here. But then there is one more command called ng build. So we can actually stop this ng serve by clicking Control C. In order to stop any command, we have to click Control C. And I stopped ng serve. Now I can run ng build. Ng build and ng serve are sort of similar with a small difference. So ng serve is a process that keeps on running. Initially, it makes a build, and then it keeps on running while it is monitoring the changes that the developer does. Ng build also builds the code, but it does it only once. It doesn't keep monitoring for anything. But when it builds, it also creates a folder called dist. It creates a folder called dist, and we can see it here. This is the dist folder, and it sort of places the executables for the to-do project in here. So these are sort of the deployable files. This dist folder is sort of deployable folder. So if we want to deploy this Angular application on a server, all we need to do is to copy this dist folder and then paste it on the server. So this is ng build actually constructs the deployable code, whereas ng serve, it does not create the deployable code. So that's the difference between ng build and ng serve, and I think it's a very good frequently asked interview question. So we discussed all of this, and we discussed about ng serve, and then now we need to discuss about ng linked. So ng linked command, it is sort of makes sure the coding standards have been met, and the coding standards have been mentioned in the file tslinked.json. So if we look at tslinked.json, so this has all the coding standards. For example, it has a line of code that says evo f line is true, which means that the TypeScript and JavaScript files of the source folder, they must end with a new line. So all these files, they end with a new line. So if I remove this new line, save it. And now if I run ng-linked, this should fail. So it says app.component.ts. It didn't end with a new line. So that is the error. So it's giving the error because the coding standard has not been met. And if we want to meet it, then we need to put a new line and then click save.
Is it mandatory to have a new line?
The coding standards in
So for example, if I put that flag to false, it should work, isn't it?
yeah, I think so. You want me to do that?
Yeah, give it a try. Yeah.
Yeah, they said that this file is customizable, so we can customize it for the coding standards for our specific projects coding standards.
Okay, this whenever we create a project, by default that file is created, and those are defaults. We can always override. Am I right?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So it looks like that's a standard, having a new line at the end of every TypeScript
Yeah,
or JavaScript file.
yes,
Okay.
yes.
Okay, it went through.
Yeah. So let me just put it back to.
So it is more of a check style in Java.
What is that?
Check style
Oh,
in Java.
so we discussed about ng build already. And now we need to discuss about ng test. So whenever I used to see a job requirement, they used to mention Karma, Jasmine, Protractor, and I used to really get scared by looking at all those terms. But today that puzzle is solved for me. So ng test command is used to run the unit tests. And let me run, and what they're saying is typically unit tests for Angular application are written in a framework called Jasmine. So Angular unit tests are written in a framework called Jasmine, and they can be run using Karma. And the Karma configuration is mentioned in karma.config.js, and the unit tests are in here. So let's first look at the unit tests. So the unit tests are in .spec.ts file. So if I look at these unit tests, looking at this line, I could see that there are 3 unit tests. And this is Karma configuration. So if I run ng test, this should run the unit tests. And then the browser automatically got launched. And then we got connected to Karma automatically. And then the Jasmine unit tests are run. And then it says 0 failures. That means all the tests have passed. And I think we can run the separate tests by clicking on these 3 links. They indicate 3 separate unit tests. So I think we can run individual tests like that. So running of the unit tests is complete. And we executed 3 out of 3 successfully. So we can end this command using Control-C. So that's about ng test to run the unit tests. And now come end-to-end tests. So end-to-end tests are written in Protractor. They're saying that Protractor is built on the top of Selenium. As we know, Selenium is the test automation tool, and usually it recognizes all the objects on a web page, but because Angular is developed using JavaScript, it is unable to recognize some of the objects. And that is why they had to build Protractor on the top of Selenium to perform the automated testing of the Angular applications. So all the code from end-to-end tests is present in the folder E2E. The actions, each of the commands. Okay, so let's go here. And in the E2E folder, we have Protractor configuration here. And if I go to SRC, I think these are the end-to-end tests. So if I try to run NGE2E, so browser got opened. And that's it. Running of end-to-end tests is complete. So executed 1 of 1 spec successfully. So we are done running the end-to-end tests.
So basically, the end-to-end testing is like having a, let's say, assume a REST endpoint is there, and you expect a JSON response from the REST endpoint. You basically say in the configuration that, hey, this is a JSON file with its content, and if I hit this REST endpoint, I need to get the content and parse it like with your Angular code and expect those fields are present, right?
Oh, that's a lot you said. What I personally think is that,
Yeah.
the way you do the Selenium run a Selenium automated test is the way you run the
Yeah.
end-to-end test of the web application. It depends what particular test you are trying to run.
Yep. So the actual response end to end is like, backend is going to send you some data, right? And you're going to parse that data and then showcase it in the UI. So that's what you're going to do. So you're going to verify all those elements are present with the data that you receive from the backend. But since you will not make a real call to the backend, the configuration lets you mark that by having a JSON file or something. You understood that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So basically you compare the expected result with the actual result.
Yeah, that's the basic of assertion. Yeah.
Okay. So if we look at angular.json file, so they're basically explaining all the files that are automatically generated. So one of the automatically generated files is angular.json, and this file it contains each of the commands that we are trying to execute: ng-serve command, ng-test command, and it has sort of instructions that should be executed by the compiler. I mean, what each of these commands should do is listed here. So that is about angular.json file.
Equivalent of Maven in Java world.
Say it again.
Equivalent for Maven?
No. Maven thing is different. So that is also dependencies. No.
So this file,
That is package.json.
okay, got it. Okay.
Is like package.xml.
Oh, that's okay. Okay, I get it. Okay, that's the okay. And this angular.json is for?
Package contains the dependencies. So where if we keep any dependency in this file, and then if we run npm install, I have already run it, but I think it doesn't hurt to run again. So when we include any dependency in package.json file, and when we do npm install, then it will basically get all those dependencies and put them in this node.modules folder.
No, can you come again on that angular.json? I kind of understood this one.
Angular.json, it has listed down what each of the commands should do, what serve should do, ng-serve should do, or what ng-test should do. All those things are sort of listed in angular.json file.
Okay.
So when I do npm install, all the dependencies of package.json file, they are brought into node_modules folder. So these are all the dependencies that were brought. So source app is the folder that contains all the Angular code. So source app folder, it contains all the real code. And the Angular code basically contains two different things: modules and components. So we have module, component, module. And then assets like images, videos, etc., they are saved in assets folder. And then this environments folder, it contains the configuration information for different environments. For example, this is the configuration file for the production environment, and this is the configuration file for probably some development environment. And then we have a tsconfig.json file. So this file helps the compiler to generate JavaScript files. So let's go to tsconfig.json file. So the browser does not understand TypeScript. It only understands JavaScript. So that means the TypeScript must be translated to JavaScript. And this tsconfig.json, it helps the compiler to convert TypeScript to JavaScript. So that is about tsconfig.json file. And we have already discussed about package.json. And then we have gitignore file.gitignore file. So let's go there. So this file, it contains the files and folders that need to be ignored when we commit our code to the version control. We don't need to put everything in the version control. For example, this folder, it contains the deployable build. So it doesn't have to go to the version control. So gitignore contains the files and folders that should be ignored when we commit our code to the version control. And then we have polyfills.ts. So this file makes sure the code we write works across the browsers, because the code we write, it may only work for one particular browser and it may fail in another browser. So if I look at polyfills.ts, so this file contains instructions that make sure that our Angular application can successfully run across all the browsers. And then we have styles.css file, which is a cascading style sheet file, and it contains the style information at a global level. That means the styles across the application, what is the entire color of our application, what is the font of our entire application. So those details can be found in styles.css file. And then we have test.ts file. So they are saying that when we run ng test, so this is the file that gets triggered whenever we run ng test. So this one runs first, and then this from here other unit tests get called. So that is test.ts file. That's it. I completed my presentation. Anyone have any questions? If I can answer, or if not, someone else can will answer.
Can you share this presentation?
You need to pay money. It's not free. Yeah. I'm just joking. I'll think about it. Yeah.
One question, maybe it's can you give a bit topic on transpiler, webpack when it comes to the Angular? I heard these terms, but not sure what it is.
Can you please let me know? I'll write them down and research about them. But yeah.
You know, the webpack, they mention about webpack and transpiler. And there is a concept called gulp and grunt.
Can you please spell it for me?
I mean, I think it's like Not really Angular, but peripheral, I guess. I mean, some people use Gulp, Grunt, Webpack. I'm not sure what these are.
Oh, right now I'm trying to learn Angular to the fullest, so I'll be focusing on that. But I can research what these terms are and if they have anything to do with Angular.
Sure.
Okay. Anyone else have any questions? If not, Sai will start his AWS presentation.
Sorry, I joined a little late, but maybe I missed. Did we talk like about how each modules communicate and about the router?
No, I don't think we talked about it.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Today
We
we
just discussed about the structure of an Angular.
Yeah, what all need to be installed. We discussed what all need to be installed, how they need to be installed, and this is all the auto-generated code by default. So we just discussed the folder structure and what each file means and what are the Angular commands, what are the node commands. That's all we discussed.
Okay. Are we going to have any follow-up? No, maybe going in detail in the next sessions or?
Yes, I'm learning Angular right now. So I'm learning from Udemy. I'm referring to the tutorial by Ranga Karanam or in 28 minutes. So far I'm done with 9 videos. So on Thursday, I will demonstrate, I will present how many ever videos I'm done with. So I'm learning Angular. So I'm willing to share with share because then I would be thorough myself. Otherwise I cannot present. So that actually helps me.
True. Thank you. That's really good. Yeah.
So Sai, I think you can present.
Yeah, this is AWS basics. Most of you, 99% may be aware of all the terms I am talking about, but I'm learning and I'm sharing my knowledge. So I'll consider, starting from very basics. Maybe it is boring little bit. In the legacy days, we have IT companies with IT infrastructure where we have servers and all the servers connected to the client machines where team used to sit and access the machines, work on the client machine, and save the data day-to-day basis in the servers. All this is basically, we called it as infrastructure. So I'm talking about cloud, where it is coming from. Now all that is abstracted into a different concept called cloud. So we can create entire infrastructure within the cloud and access it for our day-to-day activities, including servers, client machines, and everything. So that is basically called infrastructure as a service. So it will provide users with the capability of everything: storage, network, processing logics, and whatever we do within the closed infrastructure within the office, you can now do everything in the cloud. Now, when we are working on projects, before we start the project requirements, and then architects will come up with a deployment architecture saying, yeah, for this project to be deployed, I need a 16 gig Linux operating system and using some kind of WebSphere application server and Oracle database, like that. So it is complete platform we will come up with where we can deploy the application. So that is called platform as a service. So what we are trying to do here is basically entire IT is become like offering of a service, like selling items in the cloud. So software applications, maybe there are a lot of similar applications developed. So to overcome the overriding and reinventing a lot of applications, a lot of companies came up with the product concepts, and they were hosted in the cloud so that others can access as well, if it is a similar requirement. So it is basically software as a service. So these are all services offered in the internet now, which is called cloud computing. So what are the advantages of cloud computing is basically cost effectiveness. Build our own servers and tools and consume whatever the load you need and pay as you go. You don't have to maintain on day-to-day basis. Infrastructure will take care of it. You just set up your configurations, all that. So reliability. What happens, say, for example, there is a power or any weather natural calamities where you may lose it. So the reliability is increased overall with the cloud. So that is one advantage. Unlimited of storage, when we start using the applications and end users grow, like a Black Friday sale, a Thanksgiving, Christmas sale or a New Year sale, it increases high volumes on the web, and the storage space may be needed more and more, and somebody can't sit and keep on adding memory. So there should be something automated, which is basically accomplished in the cloud. So that is storage space is accomplished. The backup and recovery. So in the olden days, we used to have hard drives where we used to put and take backups on weekly basis, monthly basis, and store those tapes in our racks. And as and when we need to restore, bring those and restore the data. That is also now overcome by using cloud. Backup and recoveries happens within the cloud, and where you have the cloud infrastructure, where we call it as data centers established in several locations, and you have your application hosted in East Coast, Northern Virginia cloud, and you can have a backup replicated in Chicago or Singapore servers, something like that. So easy access to your applications, right? So for example, if everything is in cloud, you can access it from anywhere. So you don't have to be located in a particular location. These are all advantages. So that is about cloud. And when we come to types of clouds, we have three types: public, private, and hybrid cloud. So public, we all know, we can make everything available to the public. Third-party services are available from like Rackspace, and several other companies are there, hosting companies. You go and GoDaddy and all those, you go and buy from there and host your website and make it available to the public. And the private cloud is almost same, but the data is not shared, or you're not sharing any of your applications. It is maintained internally, but you have everything in the cloud. So hybrid is depends on what you can share in the public and what you can't share in the public. So that is about cloud computing. Now when we come to AWS, Amazon has come up with IT services offering, what we just discussed, three types. IaaS, infrastructure as a service; PaaS, platform as a service; and SaaS, software as a service. So we have Google, we have Azure, Microsoft coming up with Azure. Like that, we have several service providers. So we are talking very specifically with about AWS. So
Sai, 1 second. I have a question. What is the difference between PaaS and IaaS?
So infrastructure as a service is your end-to-end infrastructure where you can have a virtual private network. You create a domain, and you have your entire company operations run under specific domain, like say a company like Amazon.com. It's Sai.Amazon.com is a company. You want to create your own network, and where you can restrict your security infrastructure to access only for your employees. You create your employee IDs there, only they can access. Platform as a service is basically you host, you want to host something like you want to host an application, and you want a platform for that. So where you need a server, application servers, databases, all together. You want to group in to host an application. Is basically you come up with a platform. It can be within your IaaS infrastructure as well, or it can be outside of your infrastructure, public and private, right? Two clouds we are talking. So you host within your infrastructure where your employees can access it, not to be published outside. So it become a private cloud within your company infrastructure, and it become your private application within your infrastructure. So hope I answered. So that's the difference. And I can share my screen to show a few things what AWS is offering, but I think we have only 6 minutes. I'll try to cover. Can somebody make me presenter? Okay, got it. So if you are seeing my screen, so I already have, I logged in actually. This is my account. You can also create your account by going to aws.amazon.com. Once you create, you go to my account, say AWS Management Console, where you have all the services offerings available by AWS. So this is a landing page. You can set your landing page as well. The landing page comes with the most recent services you access. This is what you are seeing. But if you go here in the services, you can see a whole lot of service offerings by AWS. So if we have to go through this, it will be a lot, but I will go through each one here. So compute is basically you want to operate computer. So you want to create an instance of Linux, you want to create an instance of Windows, you can go to EC2. Like EC2, you have several other instances as well available. So when you go to EC2, you will get a lot of features. We can go in depth later, but I'll go at a high level in the main service offering page. Storage, you want to store your data. You can use S3 buckets. This is called S3 bucket. There are other storage services as well available. S3 is most widely used. So if you want to secure your data, you can access this S3 bucket as it's a protocol. Basically, you can use via a URL like HTTPS by using certificates and store the data, retrieve the data. You can do whatnot. This can be auto scaled as well. Initially, you can set some kind of size, and later you can scale up the storage space. So database, you have DynamoDB, most widely used database. You have RDS. This is equivalent to almost MySQL open source. You can store your data, and you have several cloud databases available here. Blockchain, anything you want to do, Amazon has Amazon managed blockchain. So they have provided templates for us to use, the blockchain templates. All you need to do is you design your own workflow, how your data needs to be flown you create your own general ledger and come here and apply based on your requirements. So the templates are available, blockchain templates. So satellite, I'm not aware of these. Quantum technologies, I haven't used it. Management and governance, AWS. So basically this is very important. A lot of people who are using AWS will be using CloudWatch. Basically you have a server running in AWS, and you don't want to expose your server to anyone in your teams. They want to view the logs. You just create a CloudWatch access application and provide the logs to them, and they can watch the logs here using CloudWatch. So this is basically log accessing capability. Like that, you have other services as well available here. You have a lot of analytic engines here. Elasticsearch is one of the good analytic engine. So what that really means is how many times your application is accessed, who are all the people accessing. If you want to gather some kind of statistical data, you can use Cloud Search or Elasticsearch, and you will see all the analytics. So you have an application hosted in AWS, and you want to monitor security purposes, and you also would like to set up notifications. You can use Elasticsearch. Say, for example, you're not expecting any message from a user called Sai, but he's trying to access. When a message tries to comes in, AWS can block that that particular access and also send a notifications to you, and you can also watch all those things here. And IAM, Identity and Access Management, you can, as I said before, you can create your own infrastructure for your specific domains and provide access to a group of people under that particular domain. So you can use IAM, Identity and Access Management. You create users and you provide access to users by using access key and security tokens provided by AWS, or you can also go with a legacy model of username password, which is not recommended. And you can also use AWS single sign-on applications and key management services, certificate managers. You can create private public key infrastructure here and provide public keys to access applications and services. So there is a mobile development APIs here available. We can create mobile applications as well. I have not used AR, VR. I have not used application integration. This is very key. One of the key services very widely used, step functions. You have Amazon MQ. You have simple queue services, SQS. This is widely used as well. So it is like IBM MQ and other queues like RabbitMQ, which are open source technologies available as well outside the market. So this is cost management. I didn't use much, but you can manage your cost based on the number of applications you have hosted and when you want the applications to be available, when you don't want. All that can be managed here using Cost Explorer. Business applications like Alexa integration is available. This is customer management, CRM, I'm familiar with. You have IoT, you have end user computing. Say, for example, we have a laptop, we use laptops, like say, for example, a personal laptop. You don't want to spend a lot of money. You just want to have a basic laptop, 250 GB and 8 GB RAM, but you want your client needs high level computing. So basically go here and create a workspace with 16 GB RAM, and your workspace can be scaled up in terms of storage memory, and you can create a workspace like a Windows laptop or a desktop kind of application. And the advantage is you can access it wherever you want. So that is one thing. And here work docs. Say, for example, in a company, we are about 10 people working together and want to share some data. You can go and create a work doc link, and that is shared across the same domains. And it's like a network mapping. And you guys can put files, folders there, create folders and share the files here. So that's how it works. The IoT and the other things, containers. Here we have Kubernetes, very, very future driven. Kubernetes is basically a cluster environment where you can deploy the applications, containerized applications, and create Dockers. Dockers can be deployed into Kubernetes. So these are several services. I'm able to cover at least 50%. But we can go in depth each one in the coming days. But this is what at a high level all the services available in AWS environment.
But Sai, what are the services they expect a developer to know in AWS?
So developers basically will be dealing with Lambda functions. So infrastructure related depends on what type of role we play in the organization, right? So for example, if it is a kind of role, network engineer, where you have been asked to provide an infrastructure in the cloud, then the person will be touching mostly EC2, IAMs, workspaces. These are few things which the person will be touching, like security managers, and they will be touching IAM as well, and most of the CloudWatch and Elasticsearch. All these things will be touched by our security SecOps teams, security operations teams, and there is a DevOps team. Right? DevOps team, their job is to deploy the applications in the cloud. So they will be accessing these services like Kubernetes, GitLab, deploying Dockers and applications within the cluster and all that. Depending on the role, what type of, because it's a huge ocean now, AWS, they keep on adding, enhancing several things, providing several of services. Say a typical Java developer, if you ask that question, okay, we are a Java group, as a typical Java developer, what I should be aware of in terms of cloud. So Lambda functions, basically it's a function where we can write a small Java function, a library, and put it here. It run a serverless infrastructure where it will run for you. The application will be run from Lambda functions. And also you S3 buckets, the message flows, right? The messages, inbound and outbound messages, you create queues, inbound and outbound queues, and where they can be accessed from S3 buckets or databases. So as a developer, Java developer, I should be aware of databases, DynamoDB, S3 buckets, Lambda functions, batch functions. Yeah, batch applications, how you trigger the batch based on the event. How do you capture the event, and how a batch can be triggered. That is a key thing to know. And also CloudWatch, Elasticsearch, these are all Java developer key components should be aware of.
Thank you, Sai. Anyone else has any questions?
Yeah.
Sai, if the application is serverless, then like, so you are saying there will be no Tomcat or no application server in the cloud?
Yeah, that's the facility you can get from Lambda functions as well. So it will try to run the functions.
Oh, so no JVM needed, nothing. It's
It has internally. It will manage everything internally. Infrastructure will manage. You have, if you go to Lambda, you choose what type of library you are creating. It can be anything, right? If it is a Java library, you choose it's a Java and Java library. It will create a runtime environment for you.
Oh, okay.
Advantage you get. Then you load your custom application, or you choose existing component within the AWS infrastructure and hook to the Lambda function. What type of functions available within the AWS API, you can reuse those components, or you write your own custom application and you load to the, you provide it to the Lambda, and it will run for you.
Oh, okay. That's very hard.
Any other questions to Sai? Okay, I think we are good. Thank you very much, Sai, and thank you, friends, for attending the presentations. We will have next presentations on Thursday. Meanwhile, have a wonderful time. Have a good night. Bye-bye.
Yeah, thanks to you too, Bindu, for coordinating. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.